Hey there, Internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. Joining me this week, I have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on, fellow nerds? I'm doing good.
Yay! So I don't know, and I just mentioned this to Cameron. I don't know at as of recording if this is going to be like our regular episode this week, or if we're gonna use this as the January exclusive episode. I was originally supposed to sit down and chat with Logan about some maybe PAX East memories because we have been granted some media badges for PAX East, at least as of recording. Myself, Frank, and Logan have all been approved, and we're still waiting to hear back on Christian and Cameron if they will be approved as well. But that's a big thing for us, so we're all very excited about that. And so, if Logan is feeling better from his sudden bout with strep throat, I might be able to sit down with him and get that episode out this week. But if not, this will be like our regular episode, and then we'll figure out what to do with our monthly exclusive. But because of that, we're kind of doing things a little bit different this week. But, firstly, the regular rigmarole. If you like what you hear, you can always subscribe, rate, review, all that fun stuff everywhere you can. We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify. We might be on other things. I don't know. If we're not on the thing you want us to be on, let me know, and I'll try and seek out how to get us on that thing. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can support us on Patreon, or maybe you do already support us on Patreon. Maybe that's why you're hearing this early, because I don't know, like I said, which episode this is going to be. Don't have any new patrons to announce, so we can kind of blaze right through that. And because we're doing this as like a weird little episode, one of the things I wanted to bring on and talk with Cameron about, we are recording this the day of the 2020 Royal Rumble. And for 2019's Royal Rumble, that happened here in Phoenix, and Cameron and I went to it and had a great old time for a whole few days of wrestling shenaniganry as kind of the culmination of our year and a half, 2 year long Portillo's bets that we were doing at the time. Where basically every pay-per-view we kind of predicted who would win, which matchups and all that stuff, and whoever won the most, the other person treated them to Portillo's, and I pretty much almost always treated Cameron to Portillo's because I just cannot wrap my head around how Vince McMahon's brain works. Apparently,
It's because it doesn't.
That's true. It does not. But so we did that, and we still have as kind of one of our next milestones on Patreon is if we reach $200 a month in support, Cameron and I will kind of kick off a monthly wrestling show that will kind of look at pay-per-views and it'll probably kind of have us revisiting some predictions and stuff like that. But I think we're both currently in the same boat where neither of us are really watching wrestling on a regular basis. So it's kind of one of those like, oh, how much can change in a year's time. So what's your current state of mind towards wrestling and whatnot, Cameron?
I'm in a situation where I have been I've been keeping up with like some general stuff. Like I know who the champions are, I know who in WWE, but most of my focus has been actually more towards outside of WWE. I've been looking a lot at, and I've watched quite a bit of AEW, All Elite Wrestling, and I've also
Which was not even a thing this time last year.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. And it's crazy how much it's begun to dominate kind of the social space for wrestling.
Yeah.
When you have like billionaires like the Khan family who own the Jaguars, as well as I forgot what team in the Premier League they own, but they're this massive, multi-billion-dollar family, and like they courted the Young Bucks from New Japan Pro Wrestling and Ring of Honor. Young Bucks got Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho to come in on it, and those four kind of established what would be the prototype for All Elite Wrestling, which was
And Cody Rhodes.
Sorry, I forgot should not forget Cody Rhodes.
Yeah,
Cody Rhodes. Yeah,
it's Cody, the Young Bucks, and Kenny, and then they kind of brought in Chris Jericho.
Well, yeah, no, Cody brought in Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
Because Cody has basically been the face of the company. The Young Bucks have been like out there as well. Kenny's been out there as well, but really the big face and the push has been the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, and he has just been stellar as like there's no way he could come into the league and not the league, but because basically like what happened is that, I mean, it was a big change for anybody who doesn't know, especially for Kenny Omega. People who don't know, Kenny Omega's lived the last decade plus years like as a resident in Japan. For him to make the move to come back to North America was massive. He was leaving behind his entire life that he'd built there. And heartbreakingly enough, after just reuniting just briefly, he and Kota Ibushi have broken up because Ibushi has chosen to remain with New Japan, and is actually doing stellar work there. Speaking of New Japan, I've been keeping my eye on New Japan, of course. I have not been as excited with some of the direction of... for anybody who doesn't know, New Japan Pro Wrestling is very, like, not as heavy on the narrative. It is much more heavy on the wrestling itself. And it's much more of a, like, old school style of, storytelling in the ring, not necessarily outside of the ring. And so it can sometimes be hard to keep up with every little development because a lot of times they have to do with, there's big changes pretty much every event. And if there isn't, then that's a significant thing as well. But I will say that the direction the Bullet Club's been under with Jay White and his defection from the Chaos faction, kind of the breaking up of a lot of stuff. Kazuchika Okada is like just dominant again. Jay White is incredible. Naito from Los Ingobernables de Japón. I definitely botched that, but
L.I.J.
L.I.J. L.I.J. Thought I was saying I.L.J., but no, L.I.J. Is just Naito with that entire faction is just devastatingly awesome. Time Bomb came back. He's a wrestler who is in the light heavyweight division or junior heavyweight division, who is just like an incredible wrestler. He hurt his neck and now he's back and it's great. There's like a lot of really cool stuff that happens. I've been doing more piecemeal about my wrestling recently. Like I am not watching long-term programs. Of course, that major exceptions to that being first Wrestle Kingdom earlier this month in January.
You did watch it?
Oh, I watched all of it. It was incredible.
Okay.
Period. The match between Okada and Ibushi is just mind-boggling stellar. Just so good.
I've never really watched New Japan myself, but I watch like the guys over at Cultaholic a lot on YouTube and stuff, and I'm in the same boat where I'm not really watching things these days. But I still am keeping up with stuff because I watch the weekly review shows of pretty much everything going on, and so I know what's going on more or less in New Japan and AEW and WWE. But yeah, it's weird. I want to say it was sometime after Mania last year where I was just like, all right, that's it. One of the shows was just so bad and I was tired of all the bullshit.
No, it was the same thing for me. It was
the Saudi Arabia shows and stuff that I was just like, all right, I'm ending my subscription, my WWE subscription. I put some of that money towards Double or Nothing when that was a pay-per-view kind of thing. And I watched a couple of those early AEW pay-per-views. But even there I've just gotten away from them. I will occasionally watch their AEW Dark that they put up on YouTube.
Yes, those are awesome matches.
So that's really cool stuff. But yeah, I've not because I don't have a regular TV subscription kind of thing. I just don't watch any of the weekly stuff. And then even the pay-per-views for them, I've just gotten away from, but I still like keep up with everything that's going on. So yeah, I was like, I heard all the cool stuff with Wrestle Kingdom and Jushin Thunder Liger getting his kind of like send off matches,
so beautiful
for retirement.
Just that guy. It's crazy to think how hard that guy can still go when he's the age that he is, and on top of that, the shape that his body must be in, and just. It's so funny because he is in this outfit that is just this goofy 80s level wrestling outfit of like a pseudo Power Ranger, basically. And he has just been a stalwart, just stellar wrestler for so many years. And it's funny because like he can still go, but he just decided it's time for him to retire. And it's so great. It's so great to see him get the send off that he deserved. Jushin Thunder Liger is part of, like, he is one of the foundational people to create what we now know as light heavyweight style wrestling, or also known as cruiserweight style wrestling. Just between him, Ultimo Dragon, a couple other people, and then like also like they created a foundation that was between Jushin Thunder Liger and Ultimo Dragon. Really pioneered it between Mexico and Japan, bouncing between those two territories for so many years. They developed this lucha libre style of like offense with the high flying, but also with incredible technical abilities that you found in the light heavyweight division of Japan at the time. And they developed this like incredible style that has come to define lightweight cruiserweight or light heavyweight cruiserweight wrestling. That was then like, because immediately because it's important to note that their successors to this kind of style of wrestling are the people like Eddie Guerrero, Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, like these incredible quote unquote cruiserweight level guys who would end up then becoming heavyweight, like the standard heavyweight champions. These weren't these muscle bound, steroided, like roided out freaks that Vince was having to put the belt on in WWE. Yeah. It was Chris Jericho's the first person to ever unite the heavyweight and WWE championship into a single like championship. Like, he's the first one to do it. He's the, like, Chris Jericho is like, I mean, Chris Jericho's legendary, period. Anything Chris Jericho does, I watch, because even though he can't, like, he's totally had to change up everything that he does because of his age and weight now.
Yeah. But he's still compelling and a ton of fun to watch.
Until his finisher, which is called the Judas Effect right now, and it is terrible.
Which is just the dumbest back elbow.
Here's the thing. A back elbow is standardly very devastating, especially in MMA. But the thing about what makes a back elbow very devastating, it's a very clear, fine, like very fine point accuracy of just devastating somebody's face. And it shows because when you actually physically back elbow somebody, their face is wrecked from it. This is wrestling.
Yeah.
This is pro wrestling. That doesn't happen. So it's just the like, goofiest...
Back elbows in wrestling are like a generic punch move that you get in like the default character creator stuff in WWE 2K games.
Yeah, it's not an impressive move in wrestling because it doesn't have the sell. Like the sell that people have to do like take this as a finisher is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy. But here's the thing I will say about it, though, is that like his recent matches, like all of his matches, he's the current champion for AEW, and man, does he show it. And I'm really excited for his upcoming program with Jon Moxley, former WWE Dave Ambrose, who basically came out of WWE and said, cool, I'm going to show the world why WWE wanted me, and I'm going to show that what I've developed at WWE hasn't gone to waste. And he has been awesome.
Yeah.
Jon Moxley, the return of Jon Moxley is based, in my opinion, it will be like the defining moment of his career, and it's the proof in the pudding that WWE is a great crucible of like refining you into becoming a better performer. But there comes a time when you are not going to be the focus of Vince McMahon's creative efforts, and you're going to be hurt by that.
Yeah, he was getting so like wasted
Just
in the like months and if not years leading up to his departure.
I'd say his highlight in WWE was definitely his WWE Championship reign. His when he existed as the Kingpin of SmackDown, which is when they did the most recent brand split, and he's the WWE Champion. To do it, he beat both Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins in the same match. And he did it convinced. Like that's a stellar match, by the way. Go see that Shield Triple Threat. It's the promise that we were all like. It's the match we were always promised, but kept on getting delayed because of things like injuries and everything else.
Yeah.
So we finally got it, and it's a phenomenal just match. But what comes out of it in the end is Dean Ambrose is the Kingpin of SmackDown. He's playing this heavy tweener role where, like, yeah, he's the good guy, but he's also Dean Ambrose still. So he can be a nasty little heel when he wants to be.
It's a shame because like they finally turned him heel really, in like potentially the best way on the night that Roman Reigns came out and said like, hey, he's got to take some time off because he's got cancer.
His
like
cancer's
that was
come back.
Yeah, his cancer, his leukemia had come back. And like Dean and Seth were like the tag team champs at the time, and like that night ended with Dean betraying Seth, and turning on him, and like if they had let him go like Jon Moxley with it,
Oh, it
like,
would have been amazing.
that could have been a great run. But they instead turned him into like this like germaphobe weird guy who just thought everybody was disgusting, and just they gave him nothing to work with, and so like it had so much potential and just was indicative, I think, of how creatively unfulfilled he was there, that he's come out and gotten to do stuff with AEW as well as New Japan, because he's also there. Is he their Intercontinental
No,
champion
he's
or their
their
United States champion?
he is their
U.S. champion.
U.S. champion.
Okay.
I think it's actually the North. It might be the North American Championship, or that might be NXT.
No, I think it's U.S.
Yeah, it is U.S. You're right, because the North American Championship is like the pseudo belt in NXT. So
Yeah.
But seriously, like, he's incredible, and the only reason he lost the belt is because a tsunami kept him from going to defend it.
Yeah. And they actually enforce the, hey, if you don't defend it, you relinquish it.
Exactly.
Instead of WWE that just lets Brock disappear for months on end with the WWE or Universal Championship or whatever top belt they want to give him for months that keep him off TV, and then just like they fail to elevate the under belts.
Yep.
The
struggles of WWE.
I just I hate that Brock Lesnar is back. Like,
right? Yeah. No. When he came back,
why is that a goddamn thing?
When he won Money in the Bank, I was super upset. And then he had one of
Yeah.
like the best promo nights the night afterwards, where he was carrying it out like a beatbox.
That wasn't a great promo. That's just him being a dumbass and treating the thing like a jukebox or whatever.
No. But this was the best part, was when Paul Heyman is reading off like the Money in the Bank contract stipulations, and Brock Lesnar realizes he has a whole year, and it's like that entire exchange between Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar is phenomenal. And then Brock Lesnar uses it to taunt Seth that he can do it whenever he wants, yada yada yada. It doesn't pay off at all. Like, that promo doesn't get paid off. But at the moment, it was great.
I
know you don't. I know you don't. Think
I hate everything involving Brock Lesnar. I think people oversell his like drawing ability, and he just doesn't add anything to anything I've seen in my time since coming back to like wrestling. He's just like an occasionally there, powerhouse, whatever, blah blah blah. But then, like even the matches, people are like, oh my god, like he put so much into that match, against like Daniel Bryan or something, or like even when we were at the Royal Rumble last year and he like wrestled against Finn Balor and stuff, and like he actually tried to care or whatever and put in 10 minutes instead of like a 6-second squash against Kofi.
Yeah.
Like even those, I'm just like no, the formula of a Brock Lesnar match is pretty much always the same. It's suplex, F5, done.
Yep, it's bad.
There you might get a little bit of offense in before that or whatever, but that's like I have no patience for that, and so I just get tired every time that they do it, because it's just like wasting like it's wasting a storyline slot on these shows that could be getting used to develop like new talent or the top talent.
Further developing mid card talent to make them the new top talent. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I 100% agree, and it's not only that, but it wastes millions of dollars. It means
that like Seth is in the mid card now, instead of like Seth being up in the top tier, and letting mid card talent really have the spot and showcase for that. Durr.
Yep, nope. It's and that's fair because it's also a waste of tens of hundreds of millions of dollars that they've put into this, and it's just not good anymore. So stop it. Unpopular opinion here, or maybe popular depending upon where you're from, or if you're right about this opinion. Things were a lot better when Jinder Mahal was our WWE champion.
Oh, shut the hell up. Because they weren't, because Jinder was the champion there, but Brock was still the Universal Champion.
That's 100%
so, like,
true. That is 100% true.
It was still just as bad. It was bad on one level because you had Brock not there, and then on the other level it was like nobody buys Jinder as a champion. So
I bought Jinder as a champion. I have a
at
shirt.
least now you have like the Fiend as kind of like the counterpoint.
Fiend.
But even there, like my issue with that is that the Fiend has to be like a special attraction as well. So you don't have the Fiend showing up. You have like Bray Wyatt, doing pre-recorded bits and stuff. So at least he's more present than Brock, but it's still like, okay, the top belts are only being defended like once every couple months now, with those two people in those positions, and it's just like I miss the days where, and like the Attitude Era has plenty of problems, but like I liked the belts hot-shotting between like The Rock to Stone Cold to Triple H to Mankind to whoever else was in the top card, because it was like they were actually doing stuff with the title, instead of just like plopping it on somebody and just leaving it there for long runs without that person even like defending it. Durr.
And not only that, but it also made Monday nights exciting because you could see a belt exchange.
Yeah.
It wasn't there wasn't a guarantee. Like when Mankind on a Monday Night Raw won the and it's funny too because they were at the time WCW was like reading off match results of the pre-recorded Raws, and they said that one, and everybody tuned in to watch Mankind win it because it was like, what? No way! And if Mankind wins it, and it's
wasn't it current AEW commentator Tony Schiavone who basically scoffed and was like, yeah, like people are gonna want to watch that, and then everybody left WCW to go watch WWF.
Yeah, because I did at that time. He said Mankind is wrestling wrestling and he wins it, and it's like, I have to watch that, and I went and turned it over to it because it in Phoenix, Arizona, 26 was TNT, 28 was USA, so just flip that channel twice up, and we're good to go. And sure enough, I'm watching it, I'm like waiting for it, and it happens, and I'm like, this is the greatest moment ever, because Mick Foley is an incredible human being and a wonderful wrestler, and just
the quintessential underdog. So
100%, because he didn't have the look. He had the look of a schlubby kid from Long Island because that's who he is, and it's great. I loved Mankind. I loved Cactus Jack. I loved all these characters that he did. When he entered the Rumble 3 times.
Yeah, when he was in there as Cactus Jack, Dude Love, and Mankind.
Yeah, just phenomenal. Just so phenomenal of a. But once again, you had people like that. The top tier of WWF and WCW, both of them at the time, were. You had these vying competitors, each possibly being the person who could take the championship and hold it for a while. Granted, you had Stone Cold Steve Austin, who for sure was the most powerful, strongest guy in the WWF at the time. Mm-hmm. But you had The Rock, who and here's the thing: if it was a straight up just regular match, yes, Stone Cold would win. But that's why they added the stipulations. No holds bar, dirty move making, The Rock, throwing low blows or chair shots or, just all sorts of stuff to just get under Stone Cold's skin and then beat him on it. And it's like there's so many great moments of that era because it's the same thing in WCW where we're going to have our top tier guys all wrestle each other, and it's going to be over the best prize there is. So that when you have a fatal 4-way, it matters because oh my gosh, all four of them at the same time, anybody could win it. Versus a fatal four way today in WWE is just like, well, we know who's going to win it.
Yeah,
Like
usually.
you're not gonna. And what I loved is seeing like the weird wild card thrown in for the fourth spot or the third spot, and then they'd win it, and that just doesn't happen today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. I mean, like you occasionally get it, like but it requires so much like a groundswell of support. Like my favorite storyline of last year was Kofi.
Yeah, 100%.
Like coming in and taking it. I mean, like I love everything that Becky Lynch got to do too, but like Becky Lynch's like the issue was hers got like stretched out and it got needlessly complicated and stuff, whereas like Kofi's was the right amount of time between like when was it Ali basically like got injured and so he lost his spot, so Kofi jumped in and killed it in a gauntlet match, and like everybody was like, this should be Kofi's time, let's make this Kofi's time, and the fans super got behind him. One of my favorite all-time moments was in order to like earn his spot at WrestleMania,
Oh my gosh.
Vince insisted that like the other New Day members basically like outlast or do like a gauntlet match with a whole bunch of tag teams, and my favorite moment is in that match where the Usos come in, and because of like the storied rivalry that they'd had for the last couple years, they basically say like, we forfeit, like you got this, guys. When like when Xavier and Big E are like broken down and beat up and just need a break because like the bar had just thrown them through tables or something like that.
Yeah.
The Usos came out and could have easily like pinned them, and you know they were more or less heels ish at the time, so like they could have done that. But the fact that they like showed the New Day that respect to like feed into that story was just like I'm tearing up now just like thinking back and talking about it. But like I loved that, and certainly like him like overcoming and winning at WrestleMania last year
Oh my gosh.
was just like the moment of WrestleMania.
And then his first big rival match is up against Randy Orton, and
which was another like 10 years in the making kind of
just
storyline.
Just like just the way Randy Orton is just a massive jerk. He's a massive jerk of a human being. Just he is. Like he's the first person to admit it. He knows he is. Which is why when he's like, why are you people surprised? I'm a massive jerk. Like, you shouldn't be surprised by this. I'm not a good person. And no, he's not. But him putting, like, saying, let's give Kofi, like, not just his moment, but let's go ahead and give Kofi this awesome revenge plot line where it's just like I'm the guy, I was the golden guy, and I've won all those championships way younger than you. I'm way better than you. Like, you're a joke. You're, like, you only got this because you didn't get it through me. And that entire storyline culminating with Kofi beating him is just this awesome moment of... I mean, Kofi could retire soon and walk out with such a head held high as such a powerful, inspirational icon in the wrestling, just in wrestling in general, and just also just a stalwart story of a man who is black and immigrant and had to have a fake Jamaican accent, like deal with just the years of, racist taunting and everything he had to deal with to get to the point where he is a beloved champion.
Yeah.
And it's just such an incredible story about perseverance and just a quality of character that is just so incredible. To this day, the New Day is an incredible group, but individually they're all just as amazing. And to see the support that Kofi got from the New Day and then going forward from everybody else is just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another reason I hate Brock Lesnar is because like Vince had no problem sacrificing all that goodwill, and just throwing it away in like 8 seconds to have Kofi lose on like the first Fox SmackDown episode. It's like, fuck that. I'm so tired of Brock Lesnar. Like he just, I hate all of that. So a lot of that, like that kind of sentiment is what I think drove me away. But I still keep up. I still like keep an ear to the ground on what's going on. And I'm debating whether or not I want to go ahead and pay the $10 today and resubscribe to the WWE Network just to watch the Royal Rumbles after we finish recording this. Because that has always been my favorite show, and I loved that we got to go and check it out last year.
It was amazing seeing it together.
It was a ton of fun.
We were so exhausted after that, but it's so much fun.
Yeah, and that was like day 2 of 4 days of wrestling. You ended up you were sick on the Tuesday, so you didn't even make it for the full 4 days. But
I almost didn't make it through all of Monday night. I was so
it's true.
I had gotten so sick because guess what? When you're in stadiums full of people and you don't have you already weren't feeling the best, you are definitely going to get way worse.
Yeah,
but it was also the weekend that Kind of Funny did the Phoenix part of their world tour. That was just such an incredible weekend, and I have nothing but you to thank for that, Trevor, for just such an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. I'll get the emails, and I almost pinged you a few weeks back of hey, it looks like NXT is coming and doing another live show, and I was like, I don't really feel like doing that right now, so I didn't bother. But yeah, it's just just given the state I'm in, and I think we're both in, of just kind of if we reach the goal, I will gladly get back into watching, because the idea for the show would basically just be hey, the pay-per-view's coming up, here's the storylines that have been going in, let's do our predictions like we always did, maybe react to the thing, and then talk about kind of the matches that happened, and what our thoughts are, and then just kind of do it again next month. Certainly my idea for that show, if it comes to that. But yeah, it's just kind of it's been nice taking the time away and just kind of living vicariously through the reviews and whatnot from Cultaholic. I think that NXT is still doing a lot of cool stuff. I think AEW is doing a lot of great stuff these days. But yeah, just WWE right now isn't stepping up in the way that they should now that they have a solid competitor again. But we'll see. They're definitely trying to snatch up as much of the talent as they can. I keep seeing every week a new 5-year contract that somebody signs, so they don't go and become competition, but become another Jon Moxley or Chris Jericho.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I loved. I listen to Chris Jericho's podcast sometimes. Because sometimes he sits down and talks with Dean Ambrose for 3 hours about Bigfoot, and I'm not going to sit through that. Other times he Dean Ambrose's first Jericho podcast after getting released is back as Jon Moxley is an incredible one, because you hear all of his frustrations, all the difficulties, but at the same time all the gratitude he has for what his experiences were. But the one he talks where when Jericho talks about his meeting with Tony Khan, and then saying I called Vince. I said, Vince, I'm doing this. I'm gonna sign this deal with AEW, and he gave Vince an opportunity. Vince didn't take him up on saying anything besides best of luck, and so he signed the contract with AEW, and it's just, it's phenomenal. Chris Jericho is just the Inner Circle, which is his faction in AEW, is filled with just some of the best stuff. He's the Le Champion of AEW. Yeah. He pops a bit of the bubbly. Man, it's just the man is just a good bit machine, and he never stops.
Yeah, no, he's been a wonderful. I saw somebody post in, I think, the Kind of Wrestling Facebook group the other day or something, asking if people consider Jericho up there as one of the all-time greats alongside names like Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair and stuff, and I'm I would put Jericho above either of those guys, because those guys were so for the most part one note in who they were throughout their careers, and they were able to really ride that one note high. And Hulk Hogan, going from Hulkamania to NWO, I'll give him 2 notes, 3 if you want to count the super racist one that's the loudest, but
100%.
But I would say Jericho has done more to stay relevant and in the conversation for longer, even if he didn't have the breakout mainstream success, just because of when he came onto the scene versus somebody like Hulk Hogan. And I also don't think he was like really. I mean, he's done a little bit of like TV and film stuff, but like he didn't try to go that route like The Rock did. But like in the wrestling scene, yeah, the fact that he was the first like undisputed champion that you kind of alluded to, and that he's come in here to this brand new thing and become the first AEW champion, and he can still go and do great work over in New Japan. He's definitely had a wonderful career, in addition to like all of the wonderful bits and memorable moments that he had in his WWE days as well.
I just think that if you want to talk about Chris Jericho, you have to give him, not only is he one of the greatest of all time, but he's definitely the most innovative and creative wrestler that we've ever had.
Yeah.
Because name me one other wrestler who has embodied different eras as long as he has, but also been able to, like you said, stay relevant. But not only stay relevant, but stay popular. He is, like, don't forget the scarf and the list.
There was a because they just had the Jericho Cruise, and that was where this last week's AEW was filmed and all that stuff. And I saw a picture come out of that was like, I think it was other wrestlers, but it was basically like like 4 different stages of Jericho, and it was basically like you had kind of Alpha Jericho from like the current New Japan stuff with the eye makeup and stuff. You had List of Jericho. You had Y2J kind of Jericho era stuff, and then Inner Circle Jericho, I would say is like still a unique beast as well. And it was just like, yeah, he has continually reinvented himself so effectively that like it's just fun tuning in and week out to see what he's going to be up to in any given week.
Not to count the stuff that he did in New Japan back in the day, where he, like, people don't know this, he is like a very close good friend with Jushin Thunder Liger, to the point where he was Dark Liger in a like series of matches against. So in New Japan, Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho were both masked wrestlers, with Chris Benoit being Kid Pegasus, and then Chris Jericho being Dark Liger. And essentially it was this entire thing where he was wrestling Liger as like the bad version of Liger. And that's one of the things he did. And so he did that. He did where he was just Chris Jericho in Japan before he went to WCW, and then he became the man of 1,000 holds, or 1,001 holds. And like the 72 different variations of the armbar. He's incredible. I honestly, like, I think when all is said and done, by the time he's done with his career, which will probably be when he's dead and buried, he'll probably be remembered as like the greatest of all time. I think like if he's on track and he stays on track and keeps doing what he's doing, he could, like, that would be an incredible argument to make for a person to be the greatest of all time.
Yeah, it's I love the storytelling potential that wrestling has. I just wish WWE did it better a lot of the time instead of resting on their laurels. And again, that's like I would say like Raw and SmackDown in particular. But I think like NXT, I think almost always does a great job of kind of nailing that stuff. NXT TakeOver, when we went last year, Johnny Gargano finally like won his first NXT belt as the North American champion, right? Mm-hmm. Or was he the North American champion coming in and lost it?
No. He was
No, he won it because it was him versus Ricochet, right?
Yep.
Yeah. He won it off of Ricochet because they were grooming Ricochet to go up to the main roster at that point. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like just like the talent that you have in NXT, and now that it is like, or at least now that they continue to try and pitch it as like a third brand instead of developmental, while still being developmental, at least like, I mean, NXT won Survivor Series, like they beat the crap out of Raw and SmackDown teams at Survivor Series. So I think that was really a good opportunity to showcase the talent that they have over in that brand, that just too often gets overshadowed by bullshit like Brock Lesnar and the Lana, Bobby Lashley, and Rusev like
cuckolding
angle.
story. Yeah.
Yeah. Cuckolding story number 372 for WWE or whatever. So
I remember somebody saying, like Vince, like the WWE writers, whoever comes up with a lot of these storylines must just be like keeping an eye on porn trends. Like it's bad. Like it's bad. Like they did like a correlation of like some stuff, and it's just like, oh gosh, why?
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Yeah. But yeah, like going and being there at the Royal Rumble last year was just a ton of fun. In particular, because the Royal Rumble's always been like my favorite of the shows, just because the format of it is certainly, I think, the most engaging compared to anything else. You get the most opportunity for surprises and all that fun, like the just the energy behind the Royal Rumble. So I love now that there are two, where you got the men's and the women's. And obviously you were there to like see me lose my shit when Becky like stumbled into the to the women's rumble at the end of last year's match, because I had long since made the prediction that she was going to somehow get in there and win it.
Yeah, you lost it. It was awesome
to fulfill like the her going to WrestleMania storyline.
My second favorite moment of that weekend.
Yeah, what was the first?
When you got broed out.
Okay, yeah, when Matt Riddle like fist bumped me.
Yeah, he fist bumped you. You went full and you started going in with the bro movement, and it was like, oh my gosh.
No, I did not. I did not at all go in with a bro movement. Like he's going up and down. I do the fist bump thing, and then I turned to you immediately and rolled my eyes. I did not bro out. Don't try and like
you fist bump. You broed out.
Don't spread these lies.
If you fist bump,
I'm not gonna turn down a performer who's playing his role. In the same way that, like, while I was a complete Becky stan, I had no problem, like, high-fiving Ronda when she passed by. Well, I have minor problem because I disagree with some of her beliefs, but like in the moment, I'm gonna play into the character. But I did not by any means bro out.
I don't know, man. I thought I knew you before that weekend. Everything changed with that fist bump.
Shut up. God, you're a dick. You weren't there at the Tuesday SmackDown. I don't remember if they'd sat next to us any of the other nights, but there was basically a kid and his dad.
The kid and his dad. That's right, from our NXT show. They were awesome.
And so, I think that was them.
Versus that one dude who had a sign of his face Monday night that I couldn't stop being annoyed by.
Oh yeah, he was a dumbass. But with you not there, they basically moved over the seat, and the kid was like super excited and got to meet and like shake hands with Rey Mysterio and stuff, and that was a really cool moment for that Tuesday night.
Nothing makes me more upset that I missed Tuesday night than thinking that I could have taken the opportunity from that child to shake Rey Mysterio's hand.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You would have totally done that. I have no doubt in my mind you would have done that, and the kid would have just like never known how much cooler his life could have been. So the fact that you weren't there was a blessing for that kid, most certainly.
Without a doubt, it was the heavens striking me down with illness to prevent me from taking a moment from this child that will forever change his life. He's going to become a future wrestling champion in some future post-apocalyptic wrestling arena where they actually wrestle for, like, the moves are actually real. And he's going to think back to that moment of Rey Mysterio, like, greeting him and shaking his hand and high-fiving him and stuff, and it's going to be like, that'll get him through the night. And through that next match where his life is on the line. Because that's what I'm looking at my watch right now. That's pretty much what let me check my notes. That's about what we can expect from the future.
You have a very dark outlook on
the world. Yes,
these days.
Yes, I do.
So glad we're doing like an entertainment website and a whole bunch of podcasts together for as long as we will, apparently.
No, we'll still be doing it. It'll just be for the robots.
Mm-hmm.
Our brains will just be in jars that they hook up electrodes to keep podcasting forever.
Yeah. We'll just be Futurama jar heads in jars.
Pretty much, yeah.
Very cool. Well, I think that's a good enough place to wrap up this week's episode.
Oh no,
Cam,
let's end it
on
let's end it on a high note.
Okay.
I have somebody I work with who has actually gotten me into a local wrestling scene.
Okay.
Party Hard Wrestling, which is, I went to my first show a couple weeks ago. I now live like 5 minutes away from where they wrestle. They wrestle at the Nile in Mesa, Arizona. And it was awesome. Like,
Nice.
first off, their champion is called the Trash King, and he's like a trash, like a junkyard man who's a king.
I can guess where this goes. You are the biggest junkyard trash
No.
king stan.
No, I'm not. No,
No?
I could care less. The fun I had there was actually there was this incredible match between, I think his name's Flyboy, and another dude who is like comes out dressed up like a skeleton, basically like with skeleton paint all over his body, with some like sick tattoos, and they had this incredible match that was just amazing. The great thing about being at a local wrestling show is that like there aren't like certain legal concerns about being sued for like, maybe a fan might get hit by something. So
Or copyright infringement.
copyright infringement. No, the biggest one was they had to clear out like an entire like section of the like two sections of the front row during their match because they were literally like throwing each other through stuff, flipping each other over into chairs, and like just it was awesome. It was just awesome. Like being there, seeing everything up front. It's great. It's great to see wonderful moments like that in a match where it's like just some really great moves. I don't know what anybody's finisher is, but man, they had a couple false finishes that I thought were going to go the 3 count. But it's really good stuff as far as like the local performance of it and whatnot. The best example I could give you about like kind of the attitude and an atmosphere is it's like going to an underground punk rock show, but it's wrestling.
Yeah.
It's real cool. So I don't know. I might have some more to pull back off. If we end up doing if we get to the $200 mark, I might be bringing in some local wrestling reports.
Very cool. Yeah, I remember at RTX, Frank mentioned that he'd gone to an indie show out there not too long before, and weirdly it was like it had a bunch of like indie stars that are now on stuff like AEW. Like he specifically, I remember him name dropping Orange Cassidy. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Because I had heard Orange Cassidy, and I knew what his whole gimmick was, but I think it was before he had signed with AEW and stuff like that. So,
for any of the people out there who don't know what his gimmick is he's too cool to be bothered by anything.
He's the most lethargic wrestler you'll ever encounter.
And he's great at it.
Yeah.
Like, just
and
awesome.
When he does come to life, it's like, oh, that's right. He can actually do that stuff. Cool.
It's just like when he makes movements and actions, it's out of nowhere.
Yeah, he'll do suicide dives with like his hands in his pockets, or he'll jump off the top of the turnbuckle, hands in pockets, and just kind of like fall into people. Yeah, it's a fun character. It's a fun gimmick, and I like that he has like his own like cosplaying fans that show up to like every episode of AEW.
Yep.
But yeah. Okay, so cool. So you found yourself a nice little like smaller indie promotion here in the Valley. Well, maybe we'll have to go check out a show sometime.
The next show's on the 7th.
Maybe that's a little too soon.
Probably.
But cool. Very cool. Well, then I will go ahead and let that be what wraps up this week's show. So thank you again, Cameron, for joining me for this maybe Patreon exclusive early access episode, maybe normal episode. Time will tell, or Tuesday will tell, I guess, or no, Monday. Get tomorrow. Tomorrow will tell. Yeah, I gotta just sit down and edit this. It's probably at this point going to be the normal episode, but if not, whatever. We'll see. So you can follow Cameron at RevCabot, 2 B's, 2 T's. Anything you want to shout out, Cam?
Yeah, I want to shout out an episode of the Disney Plus show that we just recorded about the Imagineering story.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a really great episode. I think once again, I love being on the D Plus show because I get to flex those Disney muscles, those Disney fanboy muscles I don't normally do.
Yeah.
And we got to talk about some of my favorite stuff, which is especially on Disney Plus, is the Imagineering story and kind of the creative brilliance of the people over at Disney. So check that out. It's really, really good. Both the show and our podcast about it. So
Yeah. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey on Twitter, and I also will second that. It was again much like this one, kind of a last minute recording to fill in some gaps in the schedule. But it's definitely a show that I wanted to talk about since originally watching it on Disney Plus as it released in those first few Disney Plus weeks. So yeah, check out that D Plus show. And everything else we've got over at That Nerdy Site. You can follow everything at That Nerdy Site at That Nerdy Site on Twitter or thatnerdysite.com. And if you are, kind enough to support us, you can do so over at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. Trying to think if there's anything else I need to shout out. If this is like an early access episode and you're already a Patreon supporter, thank you so much for supporting us. And if not, we'll find some other thing that you will get as your early access episode for January. Because everybody who is a Patreon supporter gets a month's early access to a bonus episode of this very show, That Nerdy Site show. So if you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, all that good jazz, which I'm pretty sure I already said, but I finally found that spot in the doc to get myself caught up. But thank you again for listening. Thank you again, Cameron, for joining me. And as always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.